Okay, so I'm here with one of my teachers at school. Please introduce yourself if you don't mind.
I'm Dylan LeBlanc. I teach history, government, politics here at Oak Lawn. My first year here, but enjoying it so far.
All right, so he teaches all of these things, but today I actually want to talk about none of them, and let's talk about commitment.
All right.
So you are highly sophisticated on history and things like that, but I want to see how sophisticated you are on commitment.
Okay.
So tell me, Dylan LeBlanc, do you have commitment right now in your life?
I do. I'm married.
Yeah.
Been with my wife. We've been married for a couple of years, but we've been together since 2012. So
Right.
going on 12 years now.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and I'd say that's commitment.
Yeah,
right?
I would say too. So
Yeah.
as well. So tell me, what is commitment though? If
Yeah.
I was to be ignorant, treat me as if I'm just the dumbest guy ever in the world, and I have no clue what commitment is in a relationship. From your experiences throughout life, can you tell me what commitment is?
Commitment is not breaking up with somebody.
Really?
I think
Wow.
that was the so it sounds trite. It sounds
Yes.
like it sounds overly simplified and stupid, but sometimes when I've talked to people in the past about like how do you stay with somebody for a long time, in my life it's been like, well, we both just
Stay.
decided to stay together.
Yeah.
And it was always more of a sense that we just another year goes by and we just keep not breaking up with each other.
Yes.
Because what that means that we're doing is that like we're having arguments, obviously we're having disagreements, but like there's something there that is keeping things together,
Yeah.
and that is underneath and also above all of those ups and downs
Right.
that you have, the disagreements that you have with somebody. And you can have those, and as long as you keep your eye on the bigger picture, right? They're just part of the year, they're part of the day, they're part of the week. And you just keep going on,
So
realizing that not every argument has to be a referendum on whether or not you're right for each other.
exactly.
Because you've kind of already answered that question in some ways.
So you mentioned the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And trying to focus on that. What would be the bigger picture, and how do you focus on
Yeah.
that?
I think it's definitely a gut thing. I think that values are really important, right? There's obviously you're going to be either attracted to somebody from a physical or a personality standpoint, but those things can change, right?
Yeah.
Bodies change over time. Personalities also change over time in different contexts.
Yes.
But the core of who somebody is, like the core of somebody's identity, that stays a little bit more stable. And what you find to be important, what you believe is valuable in life,
Yes.
what gets you excited, what drives you to get out of bed every day, how you think about raising kids, like what you think would be important in raising a kid and starting a family.
Exactly.
Those things, those are the things that stay. Those are the things that have staying power. And I think early on, at least in my relationship with my wife, like early on I kind of realized that we were really aligned on those issues, even if there are aspects of our personalities that don't always mesh really well.
Exactly.
And we bicker a lot, and that's
Yeah.
how that's just kind of how we've always communicated. And so from the outside, it kind of seems like we're a little volatile, but we've always really been aligned on the stuff that will shape your life going forward.
Yeah.
Like how important is family to you? How important is like enriching yourself intellectually and having interesting conversations with people and exploring art and music and culture?
Exactly,
How important is
yes.
that to you? How important is like raising a child to have all those values? How
Right.
important is that to you?
So
Yeah.
it seems like you're saying, because I want to try to summarize just to see if I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying, that commitment is basically an understanding between yourself and the individual partner that you choose to be with, that hey, although we're going to go through things in life, we need to have this understanding that no matter what, as soon as the sun goes down and we're laying together in bed at night, that we know that tomorrow we're going to wake up together
Yeah.
and we're going to go through the same day
Mhm.
and just keep going and never stop.
It's a project, right?
Yeah.
You're committing to work on something together to build something bigger than like each individual, and you make that decision because you make a judgment that we are aligned on
Yes.
some big thing.
And
values, goals.
it seems like, because I love that you just said it, it's a project. So
Yeah.
I know that you actually do have a child now. So when you are with someone,
Yeah.
when you're not having a child, does the commitment completely change and get even stronger when that child is on its way, or even when it comes into the world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he's due in June, right? So
Yes,
he's still cooking. Thank you. But yeah, we were together for 11 years before she got pregnant, and I think there was a change. There was a change, and it becomes a lot more serious, right?
Exactly.
In the sense, but we had also bought a house before, and we had also moved in together before.
Yeah.
So like all those those are the changes that happened for us before.
That prepared you for something like this.
Exactly. And there are people who did it exactly the opposite way, right? Who you have an unexpected pregnancy and then move in together, right? Or don't move in together until after they're married, those sorts of things, right? So for us, it was kind of little baby steps until the big one. But it's not always like that. And I think it's a slow and gradual change, but it's just really building on what's already there.
Yes.
And yeah, it's more serious in the sense that we have to keep another life alive.
Of course.
Right? And I don't really know how that's going to be yet. There's a lot of anxiety around it for sure because you just don't know. But yeah, I think there's change, but there's a lot of continuity too.
Yeah.
You know.
So you mentioned earlier values, and you also brought up how physical appearance does change over time.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask, how important is it to understand ahead of time that you have, like, understand your own values before saying that you're going to commit to someone? How important is it to know your values and be aware of them?
I want to say it's really important because it is.
Yeah.
But we don't always know that right away, right? Like if I could go back, I can look back and I can tell you that I had a really clear idea of what my values were when I started dating the person who would become my wife.
Exactly.
And that makes a lot of sense to tell a story, but I also think like I hadn't fully figured it out. And it was actually in part my relationship with her that helped me figure it out. Where when you're dating somebody or getting to know somebody, you're always checking in your mind. You're saying, okay, where do we align? Where do we not align? Where do we vibe? Where do we not? Like, what do we connect on?
Yeah.
And it's actually in that act of like recognizing those connections that sometimes you realize, oh, this is really important to me, and maybe more important than I would have thought it was before I started talking to this person. Okay. So you do change each other and you shape each other in the values, and I think. Yeah, we don't go into relationships that are with like fully formed ideas of our values, but oftentimes relationships will tell us what's really important.
Right.
Because they help reveal like which values can I do without? You know, my wife really loves to travel. She wants to travel all over the world.
Exactly.
That's a value for her. Like she wants to have those experiences. I could give two shits. I don't care.
Yeah.
I want to sit at home and relax. I would rather spend $4,000 on like
flat screen TV.
Exactly, or something for the house rather than $4,000 on a vacation. But like I'm willing to go along with it, right?
Compromise.
Yeah, compromise. That's not a deal breaker for me. It's like, oh no, we don't see eye to eye on that, right?
Yeah.
But bigger values, like how important is family to you? How important is like really pushing your child to get educated and to have authentic interests of their own? That's sort of where we really linked. And early on, I could recognize that we had those shared values, and that was helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now I want to ask you about practicing commitment. So, and I guess this is where I kind of come into play with my own experiences as well, and just to see your insight on it. You can move. You're good. So, yes, practicing commitment. Now, there has been times throughout my life, because obviously I'm young, so what do I know, right? But moments where I've liked girls, multiple girls as well. And so it kind of feels that I've never really fully practiced commitment, except for one time in a relationship that was completely childish, though. But as far as going from this girl to that girl to that girl, I realize that that's not really practicing commitment. So my question to you basically is, when you're like focused on one individual, because I'm focused on one girl, and trying to understand her, trying to be patient, especially, and building up a particular relationship with her in hopes that that actually comes to me. Could that be practicing commitment? Like in a moment of not knowing if it's going to go my way or not. And I'm still willing to take that risk almost.
Yeah.
With
It's
it.
practicing it, right? Because it's not black and white. Or it's not I'm committed, I'm not committed. It's something that you learn, and it's something that you have to renew every single day.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes to, well, you just don't break up with each other. It's like at a certain point, you either continue to renew the commitment or you don't, right? And it's one or the other. But each day you have to practice it, and each day you have to make those decisions. Each day you have to kind of learn how to grow with it, or to learn that it's not right for you anymore. And then that's breaking the commitment.
Yeah.
But that's okay, right? Like, I think...
Bye.
See ya. Like, that's okay. I think that it's like, it is both, like I said, it wasn't black and white, but then it also is black and white.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like, you are going to make your decision every single day to either commit or to not commit.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's not that you make that decision one day and then it's permanent. You know what I mean? So there's, like, it is a practice. Just like, in some ways, just like being a good person is a practice. You have to wake up and make the right decisions every single day. And if you don't make the right decisions every single day, you get a reputation. You face consequences, right? And so if you don't make those decisions to continue commitment in a relationships every single day, then it ends.
So,
but that's okay.
Before you even, because you're now married, so before, like in my position, because I'm not married, so how does one know when to say, okay, maybe this isn't something I should be committing to? Because in my mind, it's like, well, if I ride it out and I stay patient, maybe one day it'll actually come around to me because I've committed to it for so long. So how do you find that moment where you say, okay, is this for me, or is it just more of a personal thing where it's like you have to have that line where it's like, okay, this is where I can't do this anymore?
It's a feel thing. It really is. In my experience, it's a feel thing. It's not something that you can answer on paper.
Yeah.
It's not something that if you write an answer out on paper like this, these are my red lines. These are the things that I would never let somebody do to me. I would end it. Or these are the things.
Exactly. Because you write those out and then those exact things happen, or like some of them, and then I feel like I would start to question, okay, well, do I really want to align with these values, or is this one like a little bit more extreme? Because it's like I want to give the girl room to mess up, because I don't want to feel like I'm setting too high of an expectation.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of where that weird thing comes into play, because not only am I thinking that, but now here's where the media part comes into, because you see online a bunch of guys saying this is how younger men should act towards girls. You should treat girls like this, and if she acts this way, to leave. And so it's like, well, when I find myself in that situation, and a girl may do a certain thing that breaks those values of what they say I should have as a young man, it's like I don't really feel that she broke them. Like, now if you do something extreme, okay, of course, but something small, like it could be anything, something just small, like I don't really feel that she broke those values, and I still want to try it out. I still want to continue committing to it. And so my point is, like, with this whole media thing, like, many young men, I feel, are being influenced, almost parented by a bunch of random guys out there, and allowing their values to interfere with their life. It feels like my values aren't really mine. It feels like my values are of the world. Yeah. And so it's like I have so many people that I don't even know in my head that I've seen online, like, guiding my own life. And obviously your generation didn't have necessarily that, so, or maybe you did. Do you ever feel like you had moments where your values weren't really yours?
Yeah. I think, well, the basic answer would be that we all live in a culture, right? Yeah. And so even if you don't have media, like, you don't have social media, you have books, you have movies, you have family and friends that you're around, and that's how culture is built, right? We're learning from others around us always. One of my best friends, one of my roommates for many years, his parents were divorced, And so the way that he looked at commitment and relationships completely different
Yeah.
than the way that I looked at him. And we would talk about where we were respectively in our relationships, and I would like question him sometimes about like, well, you thinking about moving in together or something at some point? He's like, I don't know. And I'm like, what's stopping you?
Exactly.
He's like, well, I'm a child of divorce. Things are different for me. And in the sense that he saw a marriage break up, he saw, he didn't have his parents together in the house. He saw his parents dating different people, and I never had that.
Exactly.
Right? My parents had been together. I was born before my parents were married. My parents stayed together, got married, and they're still together. So they kind of had this weird path of their own where they committed to each other after already having a kid,
Yeah.
and have stayed committed to each other. And that, of course, that influenced me beyond belief. I've always been kind of a relationship guy. And I think, and even my sister, who's had a different sort of path, is always looking for that relationship.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we had this model of like really stable relationship with our parents. And people who don't have that would be, obviously they're going to come away with completely different ideas. And then you add social media on top of that.
No, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, and you're, I watch YouTube videos all the time to learn how to do like home improvement projects, to learn how to do woodworking and stuff like that. But now you also have influencers on social media and YouTube who are saying, like, here's how you live a life.
Exactly.
Right? Living a life, forming a relationship is not the same as building a cabinet, right? It's not the same as building a bookcase.
Yeah.
Like, there's not one right way to do it. And there's not one final product that you can look at and say, look at this beautiful piece of equipment or woodworking I made.
No,
like,
go model that.
Go model that, exactly. It's not the same, but the media culture makes it look like that sometimes, right?
And that's where people get confused.
Yeah, and that can be really difficult. So I think you got to choose what things around you make sense to you.
Yeah.
And if your gut is telling you that you have role models, or like that this is what I want, this is the this is my idol in that sense, that's okay. But it's not a command.
Right.
Right? And you don't have to follow it. But it definitely influences you.
Yeah.
For sure.
And that's well said, because I haven't even touched mainly on the media part, but I've really been wanting to. And it's very true. It's like they throw their own life out there and say this is exactly how you should live yours, without even taking into account that, well, everyone's different.
Yeah.
Everyone's situation is different. Everyone comes across different people. We're not coming across the same individuals and partners. So if I was to go mimic the exact way that one online lives their life, my life would be completely thrown off track.
And that's where you get depression, when you're trying to compare.
Exactly.
Like, I can compare a bookcase that I build to some master carpenter's bookcase with, I messed up here. I'll do better next time. Fine, that's constructive. As opposed to scrolling on your phone all day and be like, oh man, my life is not like these people.
Exactly.
Or I wish I had a relationship like this. First of all, you don't know that that's actually their relationship. They could be a complete mess, and they probably they're not showing you the bad days. And second of all, they're not you. And they don't know what you can handle and what you can't handle. What makes you feel good, what makes you not feel good. Like, where you feel like you're most flourishing and where you don't.
Yeah.
And that's not even something that we can all write down sometimes. It's something we have to test every single day. And that's where I'd go back to like the commitment being not black and white, just testing it every single day, practicing it every single day.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it will end with either you breaking it off or with one of you dying.
Till death do us part.
Right, exactly. The relationship will ultimately end because of a breakup or a death of one of the partners.
Exactly.
Like, so it is ultimately going towards an end, but it's how long you practice that commitment is up to you.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow. And I couldn't agree more. Now, earlier you mentioned a friend of yours who said that his parents were divorced, and so you guys had completely different lives. And so I wanted to talk about that real quick, about parenting. Now, my parents, I've never seen them to be together. My grandmother, however, she's in a marriage, but I promise you, I don't think I've ever lived a day where they didn't argue. And so I would always take that into my brain. I was like, I don't want to be married because they argue every day. And so that was my example of what marriage was. So I already X'd that out of the equation for years. I would be like, I don't want marriage. marriage. And
Yeah.
sometimes I still say that.
Yeah.
I would say I don't want that because I don't want that marriage. And so I would forget to say, well, my marriage could be how I want it to be. And then with my parents, it's like, well, I don't want that either because I see how my mother's about to be 41 and never been married to my father, who's now in prison now. So that's never going to happen. And
Sure.
so I see how her mindset mentally is being depressed because it didn't go exactly how she wanted it to be. She didn't get that fairy tale.
Yeah.
And so now I'm watching a woman struggle. So now it's like I'm out here trying to, I feel like I try sometimes to give to a girl what my mother didn't get from my father. And so that's where that weird dynamic. I see my mother alone, so I want to go find a girl who kind of feels alone and say, hey, I'll make sure that you don't ever have to go through something like that. I think that's where that psychological behavior comes into play with relationships. And so there's like so many different things, and I love talking about the whole parenting dynamic, especially with someone who had parents in the house, because it's just so different with mindsets. And so I think that with me, it's important that I do strive to find a healthy relationship instead of running from one, because I feel like I've been doing that because I never had that example of what love is truly supposed to be. And maybe there is no exact example, as you were saying, that there is no full model that you can compare it to what you want it to be for yourself, whatever you make it to be. And so I think the parenting thing is just so great to talk about for people. So I encourage young people especially to really look at your family and your mother and father in particular, whether one is around or they both are together or not, and question, has this been influencing me throughout my life and I just never noticed it? Because I guarantee you that it has been, and there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I promise you that it has. It's extremely important that you dissect the family dynamic. The parenting topic is so, you can go into depth about that. I've already talked to many people and realized that even girls with the daddy issues, because the father isn't around, found themselves in toxic relationships and didn't even know this because that father figure being missing. So they didn't know what a man was supposed to treat them like.
Right.
But honestly, I have to wrap this up, unfortunately. I want to say thank you, though. I really do want to say thank you. This was exactly what I hoped it would be.
Wonderful.
And you said everything correctly. And I appreciate you for allowing me to come up here and do this.
Thank you. I had a great time. Thanks.
Thank you. I did as well. So we'll wrap up here, and I guess I'll do my outro just in case this is the outro. I don't know how I want to structure this, but just in case. So from the most serious to the simplest of issues, young people specifically, deal with these types of problems daily. We never know how what they are experiencing actually affects them mentally. However, it can affect us mentally, potentially moving us to hurt others and or ourselves, even going so far as to commit suicide. So this is me leaving my door open for us to have a chance to talk, and I hope others will do the same and join us. Remember to go and inspire somebody, beloved, as we close. One community, one world. Be peaceful. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
All right.